It's lovely to be back. Happy New Year. Good to be back in the house. Thank you for your prayers. For those of you who, snuck us into your prayers somewhere along the way. We had a phenomenal time. Ate way too much food. Spent lots of time with family and friends. It was really, really fantastic. But we know where home is. Yeah, that's right. It is here, just in case you're wondering if I can fill in the blanks for you. We know that this is definitely home for us, and we are so glad to be here. It's hard for some people to understand that. When we're having these beautiful moments with our families, and they're telling us that we suck and all that sort of stuff because we live so far away, we understand something, and I know that they understand this too. But the beautiful thing about the family of God is that really wherever you go, when you are where God has called you to be, you are in your family. Not by blood in that sense where we're actually related, we have a DNA match, but just in that sense that we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves. And it's not a locational thing. It is a beautiful idea that God introduced to us called the church. And I want to talk to you a little bit about church family. Obviously, coming back from spending so much time with our families in Montreal and near Toronto, and having such rich times, and they were rich times, and we had some really special moments, eating and talking and crying, praying, all those sorts of things. It was really great. But it really just made me appreciate this idea of church family. And I can tell you this, that this is not a concept to be understood in our heads. It is a experience that we're meant to have when we come to church. When we're around anybody who, say, would call Cardinia home, we should have this sense of or experience of family. And I know that it's not always been like that. I know that maybe you have been to church and it just felt like church. It just felt like a Sunday morning thing, but I can promise you that was not God's idea. God's idea was that we would come into places like this and be seen and known and really feel what it's like to be part of something really special. And throughout 2025, we're going to be speaking to this idea of family, and I am well aware that for some of us, we have a really jaded view of family, because we come from something very broken. And for all of you who might be sitting in that kind of a space, my encouragement to you would simply be just to have an open heart and believe that maybe there's a better definition for family out there. And maybe that God can do something in your heart here that he wants you to take back there into those broken places to help redefine those things. For some of you who are sitting here, I would say that maybe you've been hurt by the church. Or maybe there's none of you here, but in other churches, where you went to church, you believed in the idea, but unfortunately it wasn't a great experience for you. And hey, church is full of people, so, it's never going to be perfect. And so what this idea is not a perfect idea. To think that we're going to go to a church that's going to be awesome all the time and never have any challenges whatsoever, that doesn't exist in the Bible except for on the other side of eternity. Once we get there in heaven and everything's perfect, that'll be great. But while we're here, it's going to be an imperfect thing, full of imperfect people, trying to emulate this person of Jesus Christ. And so I want to talk about, 5 things that I think the family of God does for us that are critical, that hopefully will help begin to frame this out for us this year. Who's been around church for more than 20 years? Okay. A lot of hands went up. How many have been around church for more than 30 years? 40 years. 50 years. How many of you have been around church for over 50 years? Wow, look at that. And they're still coming. That's great. Good for you guys. I've been around church for my entire life. My parents started going the year that I was born, and God started to do some incredible things. And I have seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I've seen the challenges. I've seen the triumphs, certainly. And I believe more today than I have ever believed before in my life that this idea is the answer that the world is looking for. This family, this thing that I believe every human heart craves, to be somewhere where they are loved, where they belong. And I think it's up to us to take up the responsibility of this, but we've got to understand what that means for us first. And so, number one, I would argue that is the church helps me to focus on God. So I know that we're supposed to be growing up in the Lord, and we'll get to that and maturing, all that sort of stuff. But there are some Sundays where you don't feel like singing. Anybody ever had one of those Sundays? Right? And maybe you, even though you were feeling like that, you came to church. And you were kind of like, I'm coming, but don't talk to me. Has anyone ever been like, I won't ask for a show of hands, maybe there's a lot of you here this morning. But it's like, I'm here. Just be happy I'm here. I don't know why I came, but I came anyway. But one of the things that coming to church does is it actually helps us to focus on God and get past ourselves and our feelings. You know, people begin to sing, or maybe a really nice person shakes your hand, and however you were feeling, or maybe the things I didn't really want to be here, but it starts to change from that to I'm glad I came. And the truth is that we all kind of need people who are feeling a different way than us to help us to focus on God sometimes. It's the truth. And church can offer that for us. Coming into family can offer that for us. There are times, I'm sure, when you go home and you are in that same kind of mood. You know, I'm here, I came home. Don't talk to me. It happens, you know, we have feelings. Sometimes we have bad days. But the right kind of things start happening in that environment, and you're like, I'm glad I'm home. And that's one of the things that I believe we can offer to one another if we will make the effort to be engaged in family. Because the challenge that we've all been given is to love the Lord our God with all of our hearts, all of our soul, and all of our mind. And while that's sometimes, some days are great, and I'm really in the zone for that, there are other days where that's just not clicking. I know that I'm supposed to be doing that, but yeah, man, I'm just all over the place today. Coming into moments where we are around our church family, that can begin to change because we're around other people who are not where we are. We're around other people who are in a good space, and they're encouraged and they're inspiring, and they start singing, and then I start singing, and it's like, man, I'm so glad I came. I wasn't in a great place when I got here, but I'm in a great place now. It's the same kind of an effect, like you can sit at the dinner table and no one's talking, right? And you know maybe you should be talking because we're a family, but no one's talking. But once everybody starts eating the nice food, the whole temperature changes. You're like, isn't this so good? And all of a sudden, where there was silence, there's talking. Sometimes all it takes is for us to partake in something good for the shift to begin to happen. And we need our church family to do that for us sometimes. And so that's one of the big reasons why I say we should be going to church or home group or whatever that is, to get ourselves in an environment, because we're not going to be on or good all the time. But it's good to be around people who can help us in that direction. And so we need other people. You know, we visited some other churches while we were away, which was great. But there's just nothing like being home. You know, I love other churches. I love the kingdom. I'm a big advocate of, we need lots of different kinds of churches to reach this world. But there is nothing like being home. I actually wanted to come back here. That's a good thing. But that's because there's just something that happens. There's something about the DNA of this place that we love. And once we get around the table, it's a really good thing. So first and foremost, it kind of helps us to focus on God. I would say the second thing is that it helps me to actually face life. Because if I'm left up to my own devices, probably I'll avoid life. avoid my challenges, avoid my problems. For as long as possible, I'll isolate myself to try and escape. And we all know that escapism is huge. There are lots of people who invest lots of money and time to just kind of get away from their problems. But the challenge for us as Christians is to face our problems. And I don't know about you, but that's hard. Yes, amen? It's hard. It's not the funnest thing you will ever do in your life. I get that. But there's nothing like hearing the testimony of somebody else who's facing their challenges to help inspire me to face my own. And this is the power or beauty of a testimony, is that when we actually have relationship with people and we kind of know what's going on in their world and we hear that they're overcoming some stuff, that's actually really encouraging stuff. And can I encourage all of you to keep talking to people about the real story of what's going on in your life? Because you don't know how encouraging that's going to be for somebody else. It's really important for us to be able to say, it has been a tough week. But by the grace of God, we've pushed through, made some good choices, and things are beginning to turn around. And so to be able to share that story with somebody else who's in the thick of maybe a dark moment is very encouraging. Because they'll understand that I'm not alone. And can I tell you this morning, if you're here and you're in a really tough moment, here's the good news, you're not alone. And coming alongside other brothers and sisters who are going through stuff too, and hearing some of their encouraging stories can be exactly what you need to face your own stuff. And to say, I've been putting it off till now, but I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna face things. I'm gonna start making the choices. And that's Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2a. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race that God has marked out before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. Understand that what this says is, because you are so awesome and strong, throw off everything else. Because you sang all the right songs on a Sunday morning, go for it. What it says is that because you have so many other people with triumph stories around you, go and do the same. And so church family really becomes this space where I'm encouraged to face my own life challenges head on, which is great. We need that. Here's another thing I think that church family really does for us. It helps us to fortify our faith, to really deepen those things that we believe. And what we know is that, we could come to, I met, and my daughters met one of my Sunday school teachers from way back. Let's say way back. It would have been sort of circa 1990. I had, Ruth McLean was my Sunday school teacher. And I actually had the privilege of speaking in that church when I went back. I left there in 1996. And it was so surreal to be up there on stage preaching. But Ruth McLean, I didn't even know she was still around. God bless her heart. I thought she was old then. But she was there, and she made a point to want to talk to me. And that was Ruth. She genuinely knew the people that went through a Sunday school class. She genuinely cared, genuinely had conversations with. We were kids. I'm sure we were a pain. But there she was standing back there, and I got to introduce her to my daughters. And I said, this is my Sunday school teacher, Ruth. And she asked me a question. She goes, do you remember any of the classes? Now, what I came up with was gold, right? No. I don't actually remember any of the actual lessons that she taught, but I definitely remember Ruth and the model she was for me around what it meant to actually know what you believe in. I remember that about Ruth. And it gave me a chance to thank Ruth for investing in me all those years ago, having no idea where we'd end up as kids. And the fact of the matter is that we're all meant to be going on a maturity journey in our faith. And it's people like that in our church family who would be kind of like pillars, people who have gone before us, people who have done miles or kilometers or whatever that we've never done before, who take the time to invest in our life, that helps encourage us to be discipled, to deepen our understanding about what we believe. Because what we all know is that situations, challenges are going to come where our theology, our belief system is going to be challenged. Things you weren't anticipating. And it will be the family of God, those encouraging people in our lives that will help us walk through those things because we're being discipled and matured. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 1, let us go on and become mature in our understanding as strong Christians ought to be. I want to be able to say, and I hope this is true for you too, at the end of 2025, I am stronger in my faith than I was today. I know more about Jesus in 12 months than what I know right now. I know more about his word. I know more about his heart. I know more about what my deep convictions are than I do right now today. And our church family will help us to do that. You see, if I'm left all alone, chances are life will get on top of me and I won't be growing as I should. But if we get around each other, if we're not just reading the Bible for ourselves, but we're in things like home groups, where we're walking through life with other people, challenging ourselves, having conversations about what it is we actually believe, that's where discipleship begins. Going to things like Alpha, where we're challenging what we believe. We're pursuing curiosities. That's one thing, again, that the church, the family of God, can do for us. The fourth thing is that it helps me to find my purpose. The fact of the matter is that each and every one of us has a reason to be here, but you might not know what it is. Like literally, this might be the first time that you are here in church, and you're sitting here you're not going, I know exactly why I'm here. You might be asking, why am I here? Why did I come here? But God absolutely has a plan and a purpose for you, and it's only within the body that you would discover that. It's only while you become part of something bigger than yourself where you begin to understand that there is a bigger plan here, that we're only part of the masterpiece. While we are a masterpiece in God's eyes, there is a much bigger idea here. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10 says, we are God's masterpiece. He created us anew in Christ so that we could do the things that he planned for us long ago. The word in the Greek actually used there is poema, which is where we get the word poem from. God sees you as a unique, one-of-a-kind piece of art that belongs in something much bigger. And we've got to discover what that is. We've got to discover what that unique gifting is that we have so that we can add value to this big idea of family. I don't know about you. How many of you got away at home with doing nothing? Oh, good for you. God bless you. Andre, good for you. Should I ask your dad about that? Maybe you got away with it. I'm sure that wasn't the idea, though. No one gets away with doing nothing, generally speaking. I remember I had chores to do, right? As soon as I could, or as soon as I could move a chair, I had to wash dishes. I had to stand on the chair. I was littler then, but I had to do it. It wasn't an option. My parents never sat me down and said, if you'd like, we'd like you to clean your room. But however you feel, it's all good. That's never how that went. It was certainly not about coming to church either. That wasn't also optional for me. Like, oh, how do you feel this morning? You want to come? No, that wasn't how that went. So the idea of family is that it's not like we have options. We've got to engage. We've got to find our thing. We've got to find that thing we were designed for and begin to invest it into something bigger than ourselves. And that happens in church. Not only do you learn how you're wired, but you learn why you were wired that way and for what purpose. That's the family. And the good news is that you all belong. It doesn't matter how you got here. Doesn't matter what your backstory is. You are all welcome. You all belong. And you're all meant to be here. And we look forward to discovering what that purpose is. The last thing I would say is that being a part of a church family helps us to fulfill mission, our life mission. We've been called to something much greater. We've been called to be a lighthouse to the world. And as much as some Sundays just getting to church was really more about you, the idea of all of this is that there are people out there who desperately need to experience family. And it's not the pastor's job. Now, I care deeply about it. All of our staff cares deeply about creating that kind of an environment. But it's not my job to make sure that everybody feels family. It's our job that everybody feels family when they get here. So it's like they're meeting me at the door, but not even just me. It's like they're meeting Jesus. Because this great commission was for us to go out into all the world and introduce them to Jesus. Not be able to preach at them all the time, not to shower them with Christian opinion, all that sort of stuff, but to actually be Jesus where they are. To create opportunities where we just care, where we are interested in other people, where we're initiating conversations and not trying to force anything. I had the great pleasure of catching up with one of my dear friends I've had since I was in that church all those years ago. And it's just great. Isn't it great to just sit down at a coffee table and you pick up? It's crazy. 8 years have gone by and endless numbers of things have happened, but we just kind of pick up exactly where we left off. And it was so good. And in the back of my mind, one of the things that I know for sure is that there isn't really like a relationship with God anymore in my friend. Whereas way back then when we were in church together, we were all kind of growing together in God. But I know that lots has happened and it's not that way anymore. You know, it's not my job to bring him back. You even say, you're a pastor. You should have been able to do that easy. You had like 15 minutes. You should do that. It's not my job to do that. It's not my job to say, you know, the real reason why we're here today is not to catch up and see how you're going, but to make sure that next Sunday you're back in church. That's why I'm here. That's why I came. I don't know if you know this, but that's uncomfortable. Immediately, they feel like they're doing something wrong and probably will get on the defensive and not being very thankful for it. I don't know if you know this, but they're probably not sitting there going, oh, I'm so thankful that you initiated this uncomfortable conversation with me. My job, which isn't really a job, was just to sit there and reconnect with him and love him the same way that I loved him all those years ago and be genuinely concerned about his life. And if the opportunity presented itself where there was a curiosity in him to ask a question, that I'd be ready to answer that question with something that made sense to him in his context. That's mission. That's us being on mission. That's me understanding this is not actually about me. It's about everyone else in my world. And I've got to be ready to be on mission in the moment when it comes, not forcing anything, but certainly prepared for anything. And again, if I'm not in a healthy church community, oftentimes church becomes predominantly about me. And the thought of sharing faith and being in those kind of God-led moments is terrifying. It's like, oh, I don't want to get, what if they ask me a question? Well, let's reframe that and say, what if they ask you a question? That shouldn't be a terrifying thing. It should be a yes. What if they ask you a question? We should be praying towards, longing for those kinds of moments. But it's only if you understand the mission that you will ever find yourself in that kind of a place. And I think, again, being around people who are on mission helps reinforce that for me. Hearing stories of other people when they were just being themselves with other people and the amazing effect that had. I was in my old church. I had the great privilege of preaching there, and it was a really unique experience for me, unlike anything I have ever experienced before. And I knew that there were people in that crowd who they knew me then, and they're still going to church there. And I started talking to this young lady that we were in youth group together, and she goes, I don't know if you remember my husband, Dale. And the Dale that I knew way back then he was skinny, scrawny, I would say, a little. He was not very big. And he was just kind of one of those kids it seemed like he was just trying to fit in. But I just tried to make him feel comfortable, all that sort of stuff, make him feel welcome, whatever. I can't say that I honestly thought about Dale very much. Not since 1996, okay? Anyways, I see this guy. He is not little anymore. He is quite large. Big beard, like bigger than Phil's. And he's just standing there, but I recognize him right away. Like his features haven't changed, and I'm like, oh my goodness, great to see you, Dale. Dale says to me, he said, there were 3 people that kept me in church when I was in youth, and he said, you were one of them. And I was not anticipating somebody saying something like that to me. And he said, just the way that you treated me and you made me feel welcome, he's like, other people didn't make me feel that way, but you certainly did. I almost left, but I didn't. And you were one of the people. Now, I would love to say that I was super intentional about that. And that it all panned out. You know, I focused my attention on Dale, all that sort of stuff. Honestly, I was just being myself and trying to care about people maybe who other people didn't care about so much. I didn't know how much mission I was doing back then, but apparently I was on mission and it was significant to him. Can I tell you something? You don't know how much mission you're actually on with the people who are around you. But I can promise you it's having greater impact than what you think. But it takes being part of church family to help reinforce ideas like mission, to help hear messages that are much greater than ourselves, encouraging us to get out there and be Jesus to the world around you. Church is meant to be more than a place to go on Sundays. It's meant to be a place where you belong. It's meant to be a place where you experience family. Larry Crabb, who is a well-known Christian psychologist from America, called church, or said that church was supposed to be the safest place on earth. And being back home over the last 3 weeks, man, there's nothing like being around family. And it truly being a safe place. And I understand that there are a lot of families that are not safe spaces, guys. I get that. And I would love to say that my family was always a safe place and it was always running really well, all that sort of thing, but that's also not true. But now I can honestly say we had some moments where it was so safe. It wasn't a battle. It created opportunities for us to have some phenomenal conversations, and it was so precious to be able to have that with my family. And that's really what church is supposed to be. A place where you immediately come and feel like you belong here. I could be myself here. I could belong here. And as the pastor of this church, that's genuinely what I want for everybody. I'm well aware that I don't belong here. In a manner of speaking, I don't belong here. Some people think I have an Aussie accent. I know you don't think that. I kind of stand out here. I know that I don't belong. We moved almost as far away from our family, our legitimate family, as we possibly could. And I have known what it's like to genuinely experience family, as far away from home as you could get. And there is nothing more valuable than that. And we have that to offer people. But I need to say that it's not, again, just on me to be able to do that. It's on all of us to be able to do that, to share that, to experience that, to be honest enough to say, listen, guys, we're not going to get everything right. We're going to make some mistakes along the way. It's the truth. I certainly am not perfect. I will not be a perfect leader. Good thing family's not about perfection. In fact, family almost reinforces an idea that we need the grace of God to do family really well. We need forgiveness and those beautiful things that Shauna spoke about. We need mercy. We need to get alongside one another. We need to believe in each other. We need to help every single person who would ever come into a conversation with us or don the doors of our church know that they belong. No matter what, they belong. We need to live this out, but you need to experience it first. Because it's not just a theory. You need to experience family for yourself. And so I just want to, take a moment right now before we really walk into 2025 and all of the extraordinary things that God has for us. And start just by this idea or this prayer. God, make us the family that you've called us to be. And I want to pray. I just want to pray. If we could all just stand. If you could all just close your eyes. There's a few things I want to pray for right now. If you're here this morning and we're talking about family, and I know that there are a few things or barriers that hold people back from really engaging, really getting into this whole family idea. If you're here this morning, and if you could just, everybody close your eyes. This is a very personal moment. If you're here and you'd be willing to just put your hand up and say, you know what? I've been hurt by church. And the thought of engaging is tough for me. Of really pushing into this whole family idea. If that's you, could you just put your hand up? I want to pray for you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's good. Thank you so much. Thank you for your honesty. God, I thank you so much for all of those people with their hands up, that they're here. The fact that you courageously, or whatever deep conviction you have about God and Jesus brings you here. And I recognize maybe it was even this church or something that happened here. But God, I just pray right now for healing and restoration for old wounds. For those wounds that inhibit and prohibit and stop people from engaging in family. Can I say to all of you people, put your hands up, please don't rob us of you. I'm so happy that you're here. And I genuinely pray that God would continue that healing journey for you. Now maybe you're here today and you really don't feel like you belong anywhere, or you haven't felt like you've belonged. If that's you, could you just put your hand up? I just want to pray with you. If you've just struggled with belonging, thank you so much. Is there anybody else? Anybody else just feel like, I want to belong? I know in the human heart, we all want to belong. Thank you so much. Can I just say again, thank you for coming this morning and taking a step of courage and faith. And I would hope and pray that you would hear this and hear Jesus in this. You are loved. You are so welcome here. And it would be our great privilege and pleasure to walk that out with you and discover how you belong and why you belong. God, I pray that you would do a work in their hearts, just like a weaving together of hearts. That there would be a sense of home and belonging. Not because of other people, not because of who they're connected to, but because they are loved by you. And that's our great qualifier, is that we have value. God, I pray for our church. You have called us to be a family. You have called us to look like a family, act like a family, and offer family to everybody around us. I pray that in 2025, we would capture this idea for ourselves. I know it's not new. I know that for so many of us, we've heard it so many times before, but it's something different to live it out and walk it out and be the family that you've called us to be. And I pray that our hearts would be open, that we would be attentive to what you want to do for moments when they come, and be responsive to bring family everywhere we go, to bring this gospel message everywhere we go, and welcome and invite as many people as we can to this great experience of family. God, help Cardinia Church be the family that you have called us to be for your glory and for your honor. In Jesus' mighty name. Let's just worship together.